When it comes to planning a retreat, there's ways to get it to go from average to incredibly transformative. Welcome to Retreat Boss, where we speak about inspired travel for fun, transformation, and profit. Guest experts will give you their tips and tricks on creating the most impactful retreats, both for you and your clients. Whether you want a meditative getaway, a wellness trip, or a business escapade, we provide you with the best advice in organizing and hosting a tremendous event. Join Catherine Kontos as she talks with fellow experts about creating exclusive and successful retreats. Dive deep into the most unique activities, the best destinations to visit, and the most uplifting trips out there that you can discover. Here is your host, Catherine Kontos. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Retreat Boss, the podcast. Today, I have author and story medicine coach, Chloe Rachel Gallaway, who is the founder of the Winged River writer and author of The Soulful Child, 12 Years in the Wilderness, a memoir of her childhood spent living in the wilderness for 12 years. Welcome, Chloe.
Thank you.
I remember when we first connected on the phone and you told me that you lived in the wilderness for 12 years. I was in shock, like, wow, in Mexico from what I recall, and you didn't know anything different.
Well, New Mexico,
New Mexico.
Yeah,
Sorry.
New Mexico.
Big difference.
But just as rural as some parts of Mexico, if we want to get into talking about it. But yes.
How was that for you? Let's start like right from the beginning. How was that for you as a child, looking back at it, obviously, right now, and seeing how that made you different than most people? Because it has to have made you different than most people.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a child, that's one view, right? And then when you're looking back to write it, of course, it's through a different lens. And I most definitely tried to connect as much as I could, to the child, right? Through my scene writing, keeping us in time and place throughout the story, right? That's one of the challenges that we writers have, is like, how do we take the reader right to place and time, right? So, how it was as a child, I think, it's super adventurous. We lived on 500 acres of wilderness at the top of a mountain range in northern New Mexico. No running water, no electricity, no phone, no outside worldly amenities, right? We had a huge goat pen and a horse corral, and we had goats and chickens and horses, and just living, off the land and sustainably. Pretty much entirely. I mean, we made the closest store was about 30 miles, and we made a trip to that store maybe every 6 months. Wow. To give you a reality of the.
What do you think it was that made your parents move that way? I'm assuming they didn't grow up that way either. It was a choice that they made later on in life to do that. What do you think was it that prompted him to go that way?
I mean, that's why I wrote the book, right? Because my parents, no one could have guessed that would have been the life path that they choose, right? My dad, went to private schools growing up, and they both grew up in Texas. And so they both went to they were formally educated. They went to very well-known schools. They had parents that were very involved. My mom's dad was he patented an oil well product, and they had a maid even when she was growing up, and she took ballet for 15 years. So she was a ballet dancer. And my dad, he was an elite scholar in many senses. He had full ride to a lot of Ivy League schools when he graduated from high school. So no one could have guessed that they would have moved, like completely abandoned their original life, right? And moved into the wilderness. And that happened before I was born. So
they just walked away from all that luxury and privilege, right? It is.
Yeah. And the question is why, right? And I didn't even know. I mean, I knew parts of the story, and obviously they were part of the counterculture. They were in their 20s during the late 60s, right? Okay. 69, 70. They met in San Francisco My dad was a musician. He was playing with Janis Joplin and some of the other famous musicians that were up and coming at that time. So he had a path even there that was moving away from being, an academic scholar to playing his music. And he was a folk singer. And I think that was really his heart. And my mom was just madly in love. So I think all of us women can attest to that path, right? Like, well, what happened to my mom? Because it was really more my dad's dream, I think, he really loved horses, and he spent some time on his grandfather's ranch when he was young. And he had this dream, right? To be this rebel cowboy dude and just live out in the wild. Maybe not as extreme as it ended up. And I don't think that was my mom's vision. She told me at one point that she had wanted to be a choreographer, a dance choreographer, and having babies in the middle of the wilderness, right, with no doctors is not quite being a choreographer.
Yeah. But what an experience. What an experience, and I consider that, we said they left their privileges, but I consider that a privilege because it's something that brings you back to nature, which is something that is so valuable, especially today where we've we've disconnected quite a bit from the basics. And it brings a lot of torment in the soul, in a sense, because there's too much of a disconnection. And this is where the retreat space comes in, right? To reconnect people with nature, with community, with people, with whatever the programs that we offer. How do you wrote a book, okay, based on your story, and now you offer retreats. Can you tell us a little bit more about what made you go that route, how it helps you and how it helps others?
Yeah, well, thank you just for acknowledging the disconnect, right? Because I think it's huge, and my heart is definitely in the mission and the purpose of bridging that gap that we're experiencing in the world. You asked, what was childhood for me? Well, childhood was deeply connected. Like, I was a kid that played with my feet on the ground. I climbed trees. I rode horses. Like, I was a sturdy kid, right? I was tough and strong, and it didn't really matter that I was a girl. I did all things that boys did, climbed mountains and, fell out of a few trees, broke my leg at one point,
Oh,
did a lot of those things. But the thing is, the connection was so profound, right? And so that connection, and I say in my book that Mother Nature really was my healer. So there were multiple traumas and things that happened in my childhood too that made it very challenging. But nature really was this consistent healer for me. And so becoming a writer, which was a dream of mine all through my 20s, but I was terrified to do it. I was like, people would say, well, you can't really make a living at that. You need to study something else, So I studied psychology, kind of to figure out what problems I might have, like, getting into the mind and understanding all that. But the thing that came back to me later was how much we are disconnected. And the writing process itself became a deep level of reconnecting for me, reconnecting to myself and reconnecting to my knowing, right? My center of gravity within the self.
yeah.
That I think everybody has the potential to get there if they're not there.
Yeah.
But this being disconnected from Mother Nature, and two, I'm a spiritual person. So being connected spiritually, we're not just a physical body. That was a huge part of my learning too. And so the writing of my story just led me back to that center of the self. And it was really life-changing. It was so life-changing that I was like, I have to do this. And I have to do it in retreats, because all my retreats are held in nature, in the sacred embodiment of the healing of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I'm taking people as much as I can, right, into that experience that became such a gift for me,
Right.
even though it was painful at many points, right? There were definitely painful times.
And we do have something in common, because I wrote a biography as well about my story as well. And I can understand you. I get you. I connect with you when you talk about, how profoundly life-changing it was to expose your vulnerabilities, your fears, your greatness, whatever it was, and all in a little package called a book.
Yep.
And you put it out there, anybody who writes a book, it could be a fantasy novel. I remember feeling so vulnerable when I said, okay, it's out. And I'm like, oh, is it good? Right? Is it any good? Are people going to like it? Is it, And then I'm like, I just let it go. And I'm like, no, whatever it is, it's my story and I own it. And that's what it is. And I'm sure, did you feel the same way when you
Oh,
first put out the
absolutely.
first
I mean,
book?
the whole journey of writing it, and you really have to get past the judgment and the inner critic and the worrying about what others are going to think, because I think it's very hard to get to our truth. So in the writing, and especially with true story, right? And it's our truth, right? It's not like this factual reality of things. It's more of a heart-centered truth to bring meaning through the experience of your life, right? And so I think in order to get to that, which is part of what I teach, is we really have to let go of our concern about what the world thinks.
Yeah, because that could be a huge blocker while you're writing.
Big time. It is. Yeah.
Right?
Well, people worry about what their families will think, especially with memoir and true story. And then from there, it's like the extended family. And then from there, it's the world community, and it's just on and on. And you wrote your biography, and you've had your journey of going through cancer and so many vulnerable and yet profound experiences. And it truly is leadership to be able to bring that forward and let it go.
Yeah.
And you're giving other people permission, which is one of the greatest things we can do.
Absolutely. So tell me a bit about the journey of the client journey that comes to you. What is it like? How do you curate your retreats to enhance their teachings from you?
Yeah. Well, I've been really fortunate. I think one of my messages is just how powerful it is to share your story, and that we all have a story that matters. And I'm living proof of that, and how much it has helped me to build my business, right? And to have these sacred journey writing retreats. And I'm in New Mexico. A lot of them are held in New Mexico, which is the land of enchantment. And there's a reason it's called that, right? It is it's a spiritually grounded place, especially when you go into the nature places around here. So I've been really fortunate that the book has connected, I feel like, with my ideal clients, with empathic people, with truth seekers, with people that are soul entrepreneurs, people that are doing just the things that we're talking about, right? Like they want to get outside the box. They want to lead the way. They don't want to just be followers of whatever the world has put in front of them. They want to lead and make a difference. And so my whole process really, I think, from the starting point with just communication with a potential client, is around them and figuring out their story and helping them discover why it actually matters. Not everybody realizes that they have a story.
I find that a lot of people get excited about writing a book. I remember when I was writing mine, they were like, well, how did you do it? How can you help me? And I'm like, I'm the type of person that if I do something, it doesn't mean I'm an expert afterwards. So, yes, I wrote, my book, but I'm not an expert anymore. Like I don't do this. This is just something I did. And I was just like trying to lead them to the proper people, which, if I would have known you then, I would have been like, well, get in touch with Chloe, and see how she can help you. So I know that there's a lot of desire to write a book, but there's so much fear that comes with it. Like I have, and the unknown, like I don't know where to start. And I remember feeling that way as well. I was like, how do I put this together? Like I don't know where to start. And really it's about just start writing and letting it flow. That's how I did it. I just let it flow. And I didn't think about, oh, this should go here and that should go there. And, I did have the blocks of like, oh, should I write about this? Oh, should I write about this? Like I'd be like, because it was so personal. And I wrote everything. That's what I did. I wrote everything. And then I'm like, okay,
maybe this part I'll leave out for legal reasons. Maybe this part,
You have to consider those things,
right?
most definitely.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me, and my teaching is pretty broad, and I did study the craft of writing. So I studied for 10 years while I was writing my own memoir. I was studying the craft of writing. And through many great teachers that are in the United States, and some of them that have written, bestsellers, and traveled and did a lot of investing in myself, right, to understand the craft. And it was very valuable. And at the same time, there was a piece missing, which is that no matter what workshop or retreat or thing I was in, nobody was talking about the emotional body. No one was talking about the fear. And
It's a
so
big one.
it was like, we can just learn about a perfect scene and writing exposition and your point of view. And, and of course there's the spelling and the grammar and all that stuff people get worried about, which you're right. Let's not worry about that in the beginning, right? The goal is really connection, connecting deeply to the voice. And so I do think there's something to understanding the mechanics of craft and storytelling. But through that experience, I learned what was missing. And it's this emotional body. And it's not surprising that really we don't in the world of craft that we don't really talk about that, right? Because haven't we all noticed in the world how it's like you're too emotional, or the emotions don't belong in it, or you need to be more professional, or more this or more that, but often it's silencing the emotions.
Well, from youth, how many times will a mother or a father say, stop crying?
Yep.
Stop,
Stop crying, stop
yeah,
feeling,
yeah,
feeling,
stop feeling.
right? So then that became my platform, and my purpose was, I realized that I could write a perfect scene from feeling, not from thinking, from feeling.
Well, the best creations come from emotional turmoil, right? Best songs, best books, best whatever, poems. I know when I'm feeling some kind of distress, all of a sudden my creativity it's creativity only because I'm tapping into that emotion and feeling really my pain. The best thing to do is write or speak or say, do something to get it out on paper, because it's magical. It's magical. I know it is for me, and I know it is for other people. So good on you for actually recognizing that, because books without emotions or songs without emotions are just, it's like almost like a business transaction. It doesn't feel like anything.
Flat.
It doesn't connect.
It's flat and linear. And, there are a lot of books out there like that. And there, are a lot of books that have the emotion, and that's really where we want to go, right? And I even say emotion before information, because a book has information. We are delivering a message through the story, right? But if we come in with just the narrative that we've been living in our head, it is very different than the emotional body and the heart center. And you have to be able to get to that, right? So you have to be able to unlock emotional memory. And people are like, oh my God, I don't remember. That's one thing, right? You're going to write the story. For some people, if they're going way back, they don't remember everything. And I say, well, you don't remember in your head. But when we start to do certain exercises and we free ourselves from the fear, we can tap into emotional memory.
And there's a lot of repression oftentimes if there was trauma involved in the writing, and then it could actually come up while you're writing. Something just unblocks. I'm sure that really, I'm sure when you're doing your retreats, that must happen often.
Happens, every time, I would say. And everybody's on a spectrum, right, for what we have been through. But I say, if you're writing memoir or nonfiction, you're pretty much a warrior, right? But it's another level of warriorship to understand the trauma and understand the emotion and the patterns that have become through that, and then actually be the author of that, right? Be in charge of that in the sense of understanding, where you lay down your truth and your articulation of that experience. It's really, it's quite profound, I think, for a shift that can happen for humanity, to be honest. That's my vision,
Right. Now, a person that goes through your program, do they do because I know there's retreats there, but is it part of your ongoing program with that person or persons, or is it something that you only do retreats, to get to the goal?
Well, no, I think to have a successful business nowadays, we need to have a multifaceted business, right? So
Yes.
I do also have online programs. I have year-long one-on-one programs for a select few. I don't work that much with one-on-one anymore, but I have a few spots opened, and that's just such a deep personal relationship. So it's like, if I am in love with a person and they are in love with me, let's do the one-on-one, right? Because we're spending a year together in that experience, right? But then I have a group online program too, a year-long program where it's just a different experience. You know, you've led groups, right? There's the energy alchemy and the uplifting of
yeah.
the community, and everybody's learning from each other. There's that whole experience. So I have those two programs online, and then I have the retreat experience, which
Okay.
is so important to me, because again, that coming into the experiential learning, the being on sacred ground,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know this, right? This is
Yes.
why this is part of your mission. I mean, why are we talking about retreats, right?
Right.
Because we need to cultivate this in our society where it is valuable. I mean, how amazing is this? We're talking on Zoom and you're in Canada and I'm in New Mexico, right?
Right.
It's incredible that we have this, but we still need to have the sacred land connection in person, face to face, touching hands, being in prayer, and then the thing of wrapping ourselves in nature,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the food that we eat. So, you know, I have a huge message about food too. There's so much, Catherine. But growing up, you know, eating sustainably and growing our own food just taught me so much about food, and we're in such a deficit in that area too. So the retreat can address all of that. The food is medicine, the heart-to-heart connection, the experience with land, and being present with Mother Nature, and allowing healing actually to unfold around us, right? So
What I want to make clear is during your retreat, you're enhancing that emotional experience to tap into it in order for them to be able to write from an emotional level. Now, when they come in there, are they have they already started their book, or is there different are they at different phases, or you know what
everybody's totally different phases,
okay.
and it works well. So it's not like there are people that come, they haven't even started yet, they're getting started. There are people that have been in the online programs with me and they're already working with me. So it's just a huge variation. It's a big mix.
Mm-hmm.
In my context, really, I have a very powerful context, which is there are 3 stages in the storytelling. The first stage is connection.
Mm-hmm.
The second stage is integration.
Okay.
During the connection, we're reconnecting to the story. We're starting to feel the pieces where I feel good about that. Oh, not so good about that. I'm kind of hiding from that still,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have to get into the connection of the story, right? And then integration is about, oh my gosh, I'm bumping up against these pain points. Like, you know, there's all kinds of things from sexual abuse to just moving around all the time during childhood, or just a huge variation of personal experience that people have, right? And integration is basically when you come into fully embodying that experience, meaning you accept it, you receive it, you articulate it, and you let it go. And it's very important that we learn to let it go,
Mm-hmm.
because that story is stored in the body, which means
Yes.
that the pain is still stored in the body. And we're living from that place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in integration, we do all of that, and the integration actually creates the great narrative and the writing and pulls everything through. And the author is really coming into what is the third stage, which is embodiment. I know you love this word. I know
Yes.
you love the word embodiment. Me too.
Yes.
It's one of my words. So
Yes. Because it resonates. It resonates through screens, it resonates through time, like it just resonates, and it's an energy that you're giving out. And when people feel your energy, it's besides what they see. Okay, there's a lot of body language, right, that we read, but we don't necessarily are physically aware that we're seeing them, but our subconscious sees it. And then there's a whole energy aspect of it. So when someone's not embodying their truth, it resonates, and people don't trust it, or they don't align with it, or they just don't get it, whatever it is. So yeah, it's amazing that you get them to embody what they're going through, because I know even a book has energy, because you can read through
Yes.
the
Yes.
words of a person. They have to bring you there. You have to get lost when you're reading a book, right?
Yes.
And if they don't
Exactly.
embody, okay, I'm just like repeating because of my business and your business. It's very similar, because you have to, if you don't embody as an author your experiences, then how will you connect in your writings to that person, to bring them to have them lose themselves in your story and imagine and picture it and actually feel like they're in that story? You need to be embodying
Yes.
your
So that's the goal, is
yeah.
to reach embodiment. And it's both for the story and becoming the writer. So the goal for my work, is to bring people through the connection, the integration, and then embody actually the story and the writer, because they are separate. Actually, the writer is your full potential. It's infinite. The writer can write any story.
Mhm.
Yes, a book and another book, and so on, because the writer within in you is infinite, and the potential of your voice. It can expand and change and shift and grow, and it's all expanding consciousness, right? The story is a particular story with a plot and themes that we're unraveling, right? For this thing that we call the book, that becomes this gift, right? That we can hand somebody else.
And it is a gift. It is truly a gift. On another question, tell me something that people wouldn't know about you by looking you up online or even just through this podcast, something unique about you that nobody knows really, just by seeing you like that.
Yeah, good question. I put a lot out there, Catherine. I'm a pretty wear my heart on my sleeve kind of girl, right? Obviously, many people know how I grew up, or if they just Google
Right.
me, they'll see all of this stuff on me. Something that I never said in the book, or that I don't really talk about in my copy, and maybe I should. I think one of the core reasons that I actually became a story medicine coach, and that I wanted so deeply to help others write their story, was because of watching my mom actually lose her voice and become paralyzed when my brother died. So when I was 8, when my brother died, and my mom's energy body shut down, right? And so at 8, it's not like I had the words for that, but I knew that my mom was missing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was, doing this work, and I was in a yoga class, and I was in hot yoga, how it just breaks you down. And I was in hot yoga, and I was on the floor, and I was just a puddle of tears. And I just had this moment where I was like feeling my mom, and how my mom had shut down her emotions, through the loss of my brother, and the relationship with my dad, and living in isolation. It was so painful to watch my mom go through that, right?
Yeah.
And I realized, that's why I do this. I do this because I don't want myself or others to shut down their emotions through their pain, because I had seen my mom do that.
Yeah, you should absolutely share that with the world, because it brings so much depth to why you're doing it, and people will just love even more the energy that you provide, because it comes from a deep loving space of leaving, allowing your voice to speak. It was such a hard lesson for you to learn at such a young age. I can imagine the confusion and not understanding what's going on, and then using that experience to help others. That's truly a gift that you're giving, the voice back to people, to own their power again through
Right. And that's how we
writing.
can transform the pain. You see that? Like, see how all that experience through my childhood, and then even through adulthood. I mean, my mom did come back to herself, and she's alive, and she was the first person to read the book I was writing.
Yes.
She helped me a lot. She doesn't want me to write about her anymore, but she did. She's like, can you just write about something else? But she was really helpful. And I think it was a huge healing journey for her, for me to put words, right, to our story. And it was hard for her too, right? It was hard for her, but it cracked that silencing. It was like, okay, we're not going to be buried in the snow on the side of the mountain anymore, Mom.
Mm,
Right?
yeah.
we're not going to live there.
Well, thank you for sharing that with myself and the listeners. I really just appreciate you so much for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
What is next on your calendar? Do you have a retreat coming up? Is there an event that people should know about?
Yeah, so my next retreat is in July of 2023. It's in New Mexico, and we'll share the link to that, I'm sure. But it's my Sacred Journey Writing Retreat, and there's a particular theme for each retreat that I lead. So this one is called Discover the Language of Your Heart.
Okay.
And so, yeah, my retreats are small. They're very intimate and small, so that, we can do this integration and emotional embodiment work. And there's 10 to 12 spots at my retreats. And so I've been really fortunate. I've been leading retreats for 9 years. I've done a lot of them. That's why I love this group and being in this group with you and listening to you, give real talk about it, right? Because it isn't an easy process to learn.
No.
I think it requires great leadership, and vulnerable leadership is something that I think we can continue to learn more and more about.
Yes. And you know what? You've actually inspired me through this conversation. There's at least 2 topics that I want to bring up.
Nice.
The next time I speak live on Facebook and stuff in the group. Yeah, leadership, vulnerable leadership is truly one of the biggest assets you can have during a retreat.
Yes, because so the thing is, we are leading others, right? We are leading them through the experience. And so for that, I believe the role modeling and the showing the way and the walking the path is an invaluable thing for our people. And whatever the retreat is, you have tons of people that are doing wellness. Thank God for everybody out there doing retreats. I mean, thank you so much, right? Like, I just want to say to you, thank you. Keep doing your work, keep elevating, keep bringing people to this sacred experience, because it is so needed and so invaluable. And we are all needed. There's no competition for me, right? Like, every single one of us that is doing this work, we are so needed. And there's so many people that need the transformation, that need the integration, that need the healing, and so there's not enough of us, Catherine. So
no, there isn't. And that's why I'm in the space where I am, is because I want to spread the wings of transformation to as many people as I can, right? And
yes.
doing the same with writing and spreading that love across, the world, really. That's what it
Yes.
is. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate this conversation and you and all that you shared. For the people that are listening, look up the link. It's on, right? People can book right away, or is it something that's coming up?
Yeah, no, it's open, so they can book.
Okay.
There are a few people signed up, and this is my first interview about it, actually. So I'm just getting back into speaking live and everything about it. But yeah, if they go to the website, it's there, and also I'm everywhere, so they can just reach out to me on Messenger. I do have one-on-one spots and some things coming up online and stuff too. So just reach out, so we can have a conversation and connect if it's something that is, I call it a whisper of your heart, because that's what it is sometimes. For telling our story, it's like this whisper that kind of just keeps speaking to us, right?
Mm-hmm. And eventually it opens up to a huge, loud voice.
Yes, it's a river. It's a river pouring eventually, Catherine. Yes.
Well, you're easy to talk to. I'm sure people will reach out to you. So I'm not too concerned about that. You're very welcoming energy. So please reach out. And thank you again for being here. That's it, everybody. If you're looking to start up retreats, or you are an experienced retreat leader, but want to kind of fix a few things in there, you could take one of our mastery programs in retreats, where we can train you how to do retreats from A to Z, where you can implement it the next time you do one, or you can just hire a retreat boss to do it all for you. So until next time, thank you for being here, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Retreat Boss podcast. When it comes to achieving wellness and transformation, nothing is more effective and profound than a well-orchestrated retreat. Achieve huge revenue growth, one trip at a time. Want to learn more on expanding your business with retreats? Visit retreatboss.com, when profitable retreats are made easy. Be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to the show at retreatboss.com/podcast. Until next time, take care.